He powered his way onto the racquetball scene at age 14 and totally dominated the sport. He's not only considered the best racquetball player to play the game, many feel he was the greatest racket sports player of all time. Let's now go to the sprawling ranch of the legendary Marty Hogan.
We have about 20 head of cattle. We have 3 horses. And then up on the hillier part, which is another fenced-in area, that's where the Barbados sheep, where our sheep are, and where Chico, our llama, lives. How you doing there, Chico? You doing okay? Go ahead, Gary. This our home here in St. Louis is it's really sort of like a dream come true, I think, for me and my wife. When we first started looking for property, we wanted something a little bit, you know, out in the country. We have 60 acres and 9 lakes, and we have some Black Angus cattle and some Barbados sheep and horses and stuff, and it just gives us a totally different lifestyle. I've been married for 7 years. We've been blessed with 2 fantastic children. My son Benjamin is 3.5, and my daughter Caitlin is 1.5 years, and me and my wife, we dated for 10 years prior to getting married, so I think we pretty much knew each other, but we both want the same things in life. And living here, it's, you know, you won't find very many memorabilia kind of stuff from racquetball, trophies or whatever, but, you know, this is, for me, this is exactly perfect. When I started playing racquetball, my mom introduced me to the sport of racquetball when I was 8 years old. She took me on the court, and I remember banging it around, and I remember how easily she could move the ball around and move me around and basically beat me out there. For some reason, that just caught my interest of that, hey, you know, I really want to be good I want to be good at the sport. Not only want to be good, but I want to be able to beat my mother. And that was my first goal in racquetball, was I wanted to beat her. And in the early stages of my career, boy, I would consider myself, you know, I was a pretty fierce competitor. You know, I would not accept anything less than just, you know, success on the court.
Cannot retrieve off the ground.
I truly enjoyed the competitive nature of people thinking and wanting me to fail. I mean, that was the thing that I really enjoyed. I mean, the more people wanted me to lose, the more people rooted against me or rooted for local hometown boys. You know, that just, they don't realize it, but that was just throwing fuel on the fire for me. For earlier stages of my career, you know, I basically came right down the middle of the court, and I left everybody and everything in my wake. I was not going to be denied for any reason. I never knew really how great I was. You know, well, number one, I never ever, you know, I don't know what it was, but you know, I look back and I was really pretty smart about a couple of things, that I never believed anything anybody said about me. I never believed, you know, I always had the opinion when I was younger that anything that had to do with racquetball, with playing racquetball, was serious to me. I projected it as a serious thing, and I never, you know, I never really enjoyed when people wrote about how great I was, and you know, how I was the greatest of all time at 17, or when people were writing negative articles about me. You know, I never really ever believed the good, and I never believed the bad. And now reflecting back on it, you know, it probably was one of the smartest things I ever did. I really enjoyed the offensive side of sports, and really the Brumfield style of play and the early style of play was not. There was something about that game style. It was not offensive enough for me. It wasn't the way for me to play racquetball, even though I was told by Charlie Brumfield and by Bill Schmidtke and a number of the greats of the early stages. They took me aside when I was 15 and said, listen, Marty, you can be very good at this game, but you've got to totally change your game. You've got to change your stroke. You've got to change your outlook on the game in order to be competitive. And I remember you know, listening to their advice, but I also knew that I couldn't play the game that way. I remember when Strandamo, Keeley, and Brumfield used to have roundtable discussions with themselves, discussing how they could beat me. And I remember all I would be doing was be sitting on, you know, sitting on the bed, eating ding-dongs, watching Superman, and these guys are technically and scientifically trying to figure out how they're going to break down my game to beat me. And to me, I didn't understand anything. I thought it was all a joke because they didn't really understand that it didn't matter what they thought. I was going to go through them. I would really have to say this in all honesty. Charlie Brumfield made me what I am today. He made me what I am because he was the ultimate competitor against me. He used every available resource, whether it was inside the rules or it wasn't, of trying to win. Charlie really taught me about what it really takes to be a true great competitor. Because in Charlie Brumfield, you didn't have an exceptionally gifted athlete in any facet of the imagination. Physically, he was the furthest looking thing from an athlete. His approach to the game was one of a very scientific, very analytical approach to how he can best utilize and develop strokes so that he can make contact with the ball and get it to go and to go where he wanted it to go. He was, he was very, very, as far as technically goes, technically he knew what his skills were and he utilized them the best. And then take that combination on top of the most fierce competitor that I've ever played against, but also too, he was the borderline of the genius psycho. And I think when you take a look at, you always talk, when people talk about, oh God, geniuses, whatever field they're in, there's always the element, oh yeah, he was a genius, but also too that he was crazy or he was a psycho. And Charlie fell right into that category, that he really was a computer going on in the background of knowing why he tried to, he had always a hidden agenda. There's no question I've been the most successful financially in sport of racquetball by leaps and bounds. I mean, quite frankly, really, there was always a joke within Leach Industries that I made more money than all the rest of the top 20 players combined, and really throughout my whole career, it was the truth. Even to today, when I retire, I'm still making more than any of the top 20 players all combined. But really, the real secret and the key to that was Charlie Drake. Charlie Drake was not, he was, you can't even say he was my promoter, my manager, whatever, because he was a combination of everything, but he was also a combination of my best friend too. And he always just wanted me to go out and play. Just go play. At the same time that I was looking to sign my first big contract. And this was, here I was, 16 years old, just turning 17. I was the coming phenom. I just won a couple of tournaments. I was just coming into the game, and my contract with Leach Industries was up. And Echelon was willing to give me anything. Echelon at that time was offering me a $3,000 a month salary. Of course, all the travel and expense money, and on top of that, a college, they offered me to pay my full tuition. I would have made a tremendous amount of money at that time, which was an incredible contract. But with Charlie and with Leach Industries, I had another opportunity. It was that hidden opportunity. It was that opportunity that if I would be with Leach Industries, that Charlie would, if he wanted to, would seek other endorsements for me and help to build my name. But but he never offered that to me. But that was sort of the carrot, sort of, if I would decide to go with him. It was very difficult on my family and stuff, the negotiation of, because everybody wanted me, including my mother. Everybody except my grandmother wanted me to sign with Echelon. Everybody wanted me to. Everybody said, it was black and white. I mean, what other advice could there be given to me? I mean, geez, I was working for $1.50 an hour at a Chinese restaurant. Here I was being offered not only college, but, anything I want, basically. But these were very intense and hard negotiation, and then simply it was all made up one evening when my grandmother said, you know, you have to go where you're going to be most happy, where you're going to be the happiest. And you know, it just brings a tear to my eye today to think about it. But you know, she made the absolute right decision for me, for my, you know, for my whole life, right there. I just really loved the sport of racquetball. I loved it. I loved playing the game. Anything to do with the game, I loved. The playing of it, the time I loved racquetball the most is when the most pressure was on me, when it took the toughest, most difficult shot to win it. That's when I enjoyed it the most, which is where I found throughout my whole career where my opponents hated it the most, where the tension was, you know, the matches was so high pitched that, you know, I could look back there and I could see the absolute fear in my opponent's eyes. You know, I could see, you know, I could see that, feel it, sense it, and know it better than I knew them better than they knew themselves when it came to competing on a racquetball court, which just gave me just an incredible advantage because I never, ever had a loss of confidence of doing anything I wanted to when I was on that racquetball court. And when I was playing against anybody, there was nobody who ever stood a chance. It was just a matter of how bad I was going to beat them. And that was my whole thought. It was that winning and losing was never an issue. It was how bad I was going to beat my opponent. I will never tell you that I am the greatest player in the history of the sport, and I will never tell you that I feel, you know, that I do. Marty Hogan feels like I am the greatest player of all time. I'll never say that. I'll never make that statement, because really, what I have accomplished, what I have done playing, will speak for itself.
Marty Hogan, what an amazing talent and great story. After Hogan's run of national championships, it was thought no one could duplicate the feat. Many experts even felt back-to-back titles would be impossible. Well, how about 5 straight national titles?